Welcome to the Comic Sauce Podcast, where we talk comics and comics culture. I am Henry Liu, and today I am joined by Ranier. Ranier, how's it going?
What's up? What's up? How's it going, Henry?
I'm doing well. Good to be chatting with you.
Yeah, loving these lightning rounds.
Totally, man. Today is September 25th, 2023. So yeah, what's been on your mind lately, Ranier?
Star Wars. Star Wars has been everywhere in this household, and it's actually really fun. We've been rediscovering Star Wars thanks to Ahsoka and going back to Rebels. So we're kind of rediscovering it. It's giving me a new perspective on Star Wars. I know we've talked a bit about Star Wars in the past, like Star
Mm-hmm.
Wars fatigue and
Yeah.
like the state of Star Wars content these days. Like, is it what it used to be? Is it something new? But yeah, here at home, man, we're rediscovering Star Wars.
Excellent. So yeah, please elaborate. I'm imagining it has something to do with Ahsoka and maybe Rebels, but yeah,
Yeah.
specifically, what's it about?
So I mean, we're generally a Star Wars household. I mean, we're a all geek, all nerd, everything household. And my kids have seen the original trilogy when they were younger. They certainly didn't have the same appreciation for it as, say, you and I do.
Hmm.
Um, but with this new release of Ahsoka, my youngest daughter, she's really like glued to it. I don't know if it was the promos we saw at Comic Con, but I think just the image and just Ahsoka's overall presence, it was something that she was gravitating to something. And so we watched the first episode and boom, she was hooked. And so now she's looking for everything Ahsoka content. And we decided to, rewind a little bit back to Star Wars Rebels. And I've only seen like a handful of the first season. And when it originally aired, and I remember thinking that's a pretty cool show. But now we're into it, man. We're like in the third season. So because Ahsoka is being released once a week, between episodes, we're like binging Star Wars Rebels. And I have to say, like, we've all kind of fallen in love with it. Like all the characters on
Mm,
Rebels. Um, and the reason why we didn't jump back to Clone Wars was because I think that would be too far of a rewind. And I think there's like I don't know how many seasons. I think there's like 7 or 9 seasons of Clone Wars, and I think it would be impossible to get through that during the entire season of Ahsoka. So I think Rebels was a good starting point, and it's a smart move, man. It's cool. It's a cool like storyline, like really cool characters. It's a fresh take. As far as like not necessarily following the Skywalker line, which every Star Wars movie has basically followed.
hmm.
Um, but it's refreshing and it's been fun. And now we're seeing all the little details that are in Ahsoka from Rebels, and I'm sure there's a lot more details that we're missing from, say, Clone Wars.
Hmm.
Um, which again, I've only seen the first season of Clone Wars. It's just been really hard to go back and rewind and you know do a complete binge of all those shows. But I think at some point we will.
Nice. Yeah, I like that sentiment because a lot of people are in the Star Wars fatigue camp and are kind of craving something different. Um, but you've proven that you don't have to have like new content be that fresh new stuff. There's like cool Star Wars content out there that people can dive into, right? And have it be a little bit different, a little like off the beaten path, right?
Yeah.
Now I'm curious, because I am watching Ahsoka, but I have not watched Rebels at all or Clone Wars. So, um, what time period does Rebels take place?
So Rebels takes place. So Darth Vader's still around.
Hmm.
So it takes place post Clone Wars, but pre A New Hope, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Or let's see. Yeah, we've been trying to wrap our head around this. Like we know it's
Yeah.
after Order 66 because all the
Hmm.
Jedi have been killed off.
Yeah.
The Empire still exists. Darth Vader still exists. Um, so yeah, I think it's that in between period of after episode 3, but before episode 4.
Mm, mm,
But actually, maybe it could be in parallel with like 4, 5, and 6 somewhere. So there could be some
okay.
like crossover. I'm sure they have some timeline that officially states like where, because
Yeah.
there are definitive like character moments where it's just like, oh, that's what happened during this time. I just haven't done the math yet to connect that
Yeah.
timeline, but
Yeah.
I know
Yeah.
it's somewhere. I know broadly where it is.
Got it. Got it. So, so this begs the question that's kind of been in my mind as I've been watching Ahsoka, and that's should any movie or just in general, should movies or TV series have, quote unquote required viewing?
A
Should they,
prerequisite.
yeah, should they have it? Should they not have it? Should all movies and TV series stand alone? Um, yeah, this is I think with when Ahsoka dropped, I think that this question has become like a kind of in the public consciousness, right? Because it's I've definitely sort of been asking that myself, right?
You consider it like a hot button issue, ooh,
Kind
this is,
of,
I don't know if this is working, like, or I think it's
yeah,
working great, or
yeah. Because I'm like on the other side of it because the whole time when the MCU was hitting big with the Avengers movies and everything, you and I, we would watch every movie like on opening weekend, and we would have all the prerequisite, right? We even had like comics knowledge too, right? So we were always in the like, oh, I've done the homework camp, right?
yeah.
So like when Avengers Endgame came out, there were a lot of people who were like, do I have to watch all this stuff? And it seemed kind of silly to you and me because we had seen it, and to to not have seen it, it seemed just kind of like, how can you not have seen these movies, right? But now I'm on the other side of it, right? And I'm not getting all these like little insider references, and I feel a little left out. So yeah, what would your answer to that question be? Do movies and TV shows should they never require uh, prerequisite viewings?
I think it's a mixture of both. I mean, if you're talking about a movie that's like, that's like fresh on the scene, there's zero backstory. Um, like say for example, when the original trilogy came out, right, 4, 5, and 6, and I know everyone and their mother had seen episode 4. Like, who didn't watch Star Wars back in
Yeah, yeah,
77, right?
yeah.
But can you imagine having watched and not having watched A New Hope, not watching Empire, but going directly to Return of the Jedi? Like, would that movie make sense to you?
Yeah.
I think in some ways it would. Like, you would know who the good guys are, you know who the bad guys are, right?
Yeah.
I think just the general structure you would understand, but like all the
Mhm, mhm.
little connections and all of the little details, those would be really hard to pick up on.
Yeah.
Now, you take the original trilogy, you take the prequels, you take all of the TV shows, like the animated shows. Do you need to watch all that stuff? I don't think so. But we're speaking in general, right? Like,
Mhm, yeah.
yeah. I mean, I think that my general take on it is that the movie should be generally standalone. You can't assume that
Yeah.
everyone's watching everything.
Yeah.
But Star Wars is unique in that it has history and it has a lot of content, right?
Mhm.
Not I I I don't think every movie is one where you have to see all of them in the past. So like there's content for you if you want to see that. And I think Ahsoka is in that case where you don't have to, but you can,
Yeah.
right? And they have that luxury of time and the amount of content that they have.
Yep, yep, yep. Yeah, I see what you're saying.
So
Good takes.
there's a
Go ahead.
Star Wars saga for you, depending on the level of engagement you want to, you know, put in there. The amount of
Yeah.
legwork you want to put in there, especially if you're catching up. Like kids these days, right? Like they'll see live on television Ahsoka, but like they weren't even born when heck, like when Force Awakens. I'm sure there's little kids that hadn't even seen that
Mhm.
movie. They weren't even born at that time, and they're
Yeah.
already being hit with Ahsoka. It's like how would they position themselves to enjoy Star Wars the way we do? And it's
Yeah.
like it's impossible. There's no way.
Yeah. 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 Good point. Good point. Oh, yeah. I liked how you framed it with Return of the Jedi because I do think that movie can stand alone. But if you hadn't watched episodes 4 and 5, you're definitely missing out on a lot of a lot of key content, a lot of key character development, right? And I think for a lot of these fandom type movies and shows, yeah, it's the same. Like, yes, a movie like Avengers Endgame can stand alone, but man, if you didn't watch any of the Marvel movies before that one, wow, you're just missing out on so much, right? And there are
Yeah,
so many references you wouldn't get,
like
right?
Endgame and Infinity War. I think that's a little unique because if you think about it,
Hmm.
how many? I mean, there was sort of like this linear movement from Iron Man, Captain America, Hulk, right? Ant-Man, all those characters. It was almost sort of like this linear buildup, whereas like Star Wars, they came at us in chunks with four, five, six, then one, two, three, right? Then seven, eight, nine, and then scattered in between all that are these are the animated shows and graphic novels, or not graphic,
Yeah,
yeah, graphic novels and like novels that tie into it.
yeah, yep, yep.
Um, yeah, so I think with Star Wars, it's much more intricate. There's more threads to weave through versus the
Hmm.
MCU where it's just the MCU. And yeah, you could have like backstory from the comics, but the MCU, I mean, honestly, it's really kind of its own thing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So that leads me to my next point. Star Wars is a different animal from Marvel Cinematic Universe. And yeah, to me, Ahsoka feels a little different. Like I feel like Dave Filoni is sort of is upping the ante a bit on this whole like um shared universe stuff where he's really assuming people know stuff. And he's like, we're not going to waste screen time on explaining things. We're just gonna dive right in. Like Ahsoka episode 1, like I was like, whoa, like like all these references. Like I have no idea what he's talking about. Like here and there, I'm like, oh wait, I know that. I okay, like I was getting a framework like of where this takes place just with the movies. Like I hadn't watched all these animated shows, right? So like I'm like, okay, I get these few references. This takes place like after Return of the Jedi, but before Force Awakens. I got that. That was about all I got. But yeah, this one seems a little more where it really is like unapologetically being of the opinion that it's sort of like take it or leave it, understand it or don't. Like we're just moving forward with this story, and you can just figure it out as we go. A little off-putting because we're not going to spoil the show at all right now. And quick plug, our next episode with Porfirio and Christian, we will be doing a full recap of Ahsoka season 1. So stay tuned for that. But in the meantime, no spoilers. And I'm just saying, like, for a lot of this show, I've been like Googling and like asking people like you, Ranier, questions about like, what, who is this? Who's this Ezra guy? Blah blah blah.
But see,
So yeah,
look at this level of intrigue you're in. You're asking these questions. You're going to other sources to try to figure
yeah,
out. Like, in my opinion, he's got you, man. Like, Dave Filoni's got you. Like, if you're
yeah.
asking those questions, then you're generally intrigued about this
Hmm.
story, about these characters, right?
Hey, that's a great point. Maybe it was on purpose
I think
because
there's a method to the madness.
you might be on might be onto something there because like I've fashioned myself a pretty big Star Wars fan, and for a long time you couldn't get anything past me. I would watch. I've seen all the Star Wars movies, right? So there would be few references I wouldn't get, right? But now, like, wow, I feel like, oh shit, like I'm behind the curve here. So yeah, there is this feeling of like, oh, I got to catch up. I want to know more. So yeah, maybe that was a little bit on purpose.
You want to know what's crazy too? So not only are we going back and watching Star Wars Rebels, but I'm having my girls also. We just finished watching A New Hope. Now we are just about to finish. Actually, we just finished Empire Strikes Back and just started Return of the Jedi. So now they're watching it at their age with full
Mm.
attention. And dude,
Haha.
it's actually been a really fun experience watching them enjoy it. And so
Yeah.
what's crazy about it is I'm really excited for them to go back, and so after we're gonna go through the whole thing, man. We're gonna go back to one, two, and three, just the same way like we saw it, right?
Hmm.
And as crappy as the prequels have been, I'm actually kind of excited to see them watch it. So not
Hmm.
only can they compare it to the original trilogy, but there are tie-ins from, because I mean the Clone Wars, all that episodes one, two, and three does tie into a lot of stuff in Rebels, a lot of stuff in Ahsoka, and I'm
Hmm.
excited to see them see and make those connections.
Yeah.
So in many ways, again, that Marvel effect of like, hey, the first movie was okay, but the second movie was awesome, so it up levels the first movie. It's
Mm.
having that same effect, um, with now soon, going back into the prequel trilogy. So
Yeah.
I think their formula is working, man. Like we're all certainly excited about it.
That's cool. That's super cool. And you're right, with Ahsoka, there are a lot of prequel references. And I don't doubt it that there's renewed interest in revisiting the prequels and really all things Star Wars in general.
But I think the thing though that does trip people up is that, I mean, we see Ahsoka in Clone Wars, we see Ahsoka in Rebels, we see Ahsoka in Ahsoka.
Hmm.
They are actually they are all actually very different interpretations of Ahsoka. So for people
Mm,
that like love Ahsoka, like say adult fans, I've heard some criticism. I
yeah.
think there are a lot of people that don't like the way Ahsoka is on the show currently.
Hmm. Hmm.
But again, I think that's sort of the trip up, because it's like you have a voice actor that has embodied the character versus the actor who's
Yeah.
acting the
Yeah.
character, and they are very different.
Yeah. Yeah. That's true. And the character is at a different age in those other projects, right? So
Yeah,
yeah, that's that happens too.
yeah.
We change as we age. So there's that as well.
Oh, and there's Mandalorian. I mean, she shows up in Mandalorian too.
Mm.
Again,
That's right.
yeah, very different.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, cool. So what else is going on? I wanted to bring this one up real quick. Rotten Tomatoes. So a news item came to light recently about how Rotten Tomatoes is basically crooked. It's all bullshit.
It's a payola scam. I knew it. I knew it.
Yeah, dude, you and I called this years ago. We we basically thought the tomato meter was bullshit like 5 years ago, like at least 5 years ago, and have not put a lot of weight into Rotten Tomatoes for a long time. Um,
Well, we should talk about why we think it's bullshit.
okay, yep. Okay, so even before this news story came out recently, right? So before that even came to light, like why did you think Rotten Tomatoes was bullshit?
So what I hate about it is you get this score, right? Rated fresh, you have a percentage score, and it's basically like a grade.
Yeah.
And what I hate most about it is people will not see a movie because it didn't reach a certain score, or they'll brag about a movie they love because it has a certain score, right? And it almost becomes the definitive factor as to if people will discover or watch a new movie versus not watching it. And
Hmm.
I think it's a really bad thing. And I think what really sucks about it too is, while the percentage scores can be subjective, it does sort of set an expectation of like, okay, well, what Rotten Tomato level movie are we going to be watching?
Yeah. Yeah.
So if you go into, say, a blockbuster film where it received a score of like less than 50, then are you going in there thinking, oh man, this is going to be a crappy movie? Or
Yeah.
if it's a high
Yeah.
score, you're going in there thinking this is going to blow my mind. You
Hmm.
walk away from it and it falls very short. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
but I just hate how, if you're an Xfinity or Comcast member, and you're you don't channel surf anymore, right? If you're looking through the menu, every movie that you come across, there's a tomato rating on every single movie,
Yeah.
and it's like I don't want to see that. I hate that it's in my face.
Yeah.
Like I wish they could move it to the side, and if you
Yeah.
want to see it, you can. But I just hate how it's so much in your face. And then
Yeah.
when we got tickets for the Last Jedi, well, I remember
Oh
telling you
yeah,
this.
I remember that.
I
Yeah.
was we were pre-purchasing our tickets for opening night, and just as I was like, you know, on the buy page, there's a banner ad showing the Rotten Tomato score, and I'm like, dude, I'm already buying tickets. Like,
Yeah.
I don't need to see this.
Right. Yeah, you didn't want to see it anyway, but you really didn't need it when you were buying the fucking tickets, right?
Right.
You're giving them your money anyway.
It's the worst.
Oh,
It's a Yelp rating that you don't. That's the worst.
yeah, yeah. 100% agree. And yeah, I had the same opinion. For a long time, it was everywhere. It still is. It's in advertising. They put the tomato meter score in some of the ads for movies. They put them like on the movie listings. You were going on Fandango, whatever you want to buy it. Again, you're looking to buy the tickets, and they have the score there. Why?
It's like the
So
herpes of movies, right?
oh yeah, it's a major pain. I'm gonna add this too. The whole scoring methodology is terrible. Okay, it'd be one thing if they just took the score and gave it an average, but it's different than that. It's worse than that, right? So I think I gave this example way back when. But if there's a movie that comes out and there's 5 critics that all kind of like the movie, they're like, yeah, it's not a great movie, but I just kind of liked it enough to recommend it. They all give it like 3 out of 5. 5 critics give it a 3 out of 5. That's 100% on the tomato meter because it's 5 recommendations and 0 non-recommendations. 100% for a lukewarm response by all the critics, right? So it's highly flawed. On the flip side, let's say there's a different movie. 4 of the critics love it, like all-time classic, one of their favorite movies of all time, 5 out of 5 rating. But one critic is like, I had some problems with it. I didn't hate it, but not enough to recommend it. Gives it a 2 out of 5. So the overall score becomes an 80%. If you took the cumulative rating and just averaged the scores, the 80% on the tomato meter movie would rate higher than the 100%. So it's just a highly flawed system. And this is where it gets real. You and I commented on this, and you know, to sort of tweak a score to make it like kind of didn't like it to I kind of liked it. Not that hard to do, right? Studios have a lot of influence. Maybe they take some of these rinky-dink reviewers and throw some money their way, etc. It didn't seem that far-fetched that their opinions could be swayed.
It's not
Guess what?
regulated.
Guess what? We were 100% correct on this.
Dude,
It,
you should insert that audio clip right now, and then
yes.
come back to us
There you
today,
go. Yeah.
right?
I mean, we called it so now the news item, right? This was actually happening, right? The so technically it wasn't the movie studios themselves doing it. It was PR firms hired by the movie studios to do it. It's actually even worse. They weren't even doing it themselves. They were like hiring other people to do it for
Ugh,
them.
look at that loophole, man.
Dude, it's so shady.
Yeah, because then the movie studios can say, no, we didn't pay them,
Yeah.
right? Is that
Right.
is that
We didn't
the
do anything. Some other guy did it.
oh, so shady.
It's the worst. It's the worst. But now more than ever, just ignore the tomato meter. It's all bullshit, man. It really is bullshit. There's
But
just
we're
so
still,
many reasons not to look
dude,
at
for
it now.
years to come though, we're still going to continue to see
Yeah,
rated fresh.
yeah.
What I thought was really interesting was when the what's that last the Shazam
Mhm.
the second Shazam movie came
Yeah,
out.
yeah.
They touted it as okay. Well, I actually like that movie. I can't remember what you guys said about it, but I think it got a Rotten Tomato score of like, I think it was like less than 50, it was 40 something, I think. But the
Mhm.
audience score was like 87 or 92. They actually advertised the audience score. So if you're not really paying attention, you're thinking, oh man, Shazam Fury of the Gods got like 87% audience score.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it can be misleading, right?
Oh, yeah, completely, completely. It can.
But I think I still don't agree with that Rotten Tomato score, by the way,
Oh,
for
yeah.
that movie.
Well, guess what? In a way, it's a good thing now because before we felt like if you saw that tomato meter rating, it'd be like a spoiler. But now I don't think it is. It's all such bullshit that whatever it is you're seeing, just don't listen to it. Don't respond to it. Don't have any expectations because it truly is bullshit
Right. But
now.
dude, it's easier said than done, man.
It
Because I
is.
think
It
like
is. Yeah.
just the general audience, like all our
Yeah.
friends, that'd be like, "Oh man, did you see this movie? It tanked. Look at Rotten Tomatoes." I'm like, "What?" I
Yeah.
hate it, and it's gonna
Yeah.
be like that, man. It's gonna be like that for a long time. I don't
Yeah.
think it's gonna, unless
Yeah.
there's some other like Rotten Tomato rival that comes out that could like, you know, kick them to the curb.
Yeah. So I guess the question is, if you're not going to go off the tomato meter, like what are you going to use? Um, like I think the whole reason why the tomato meter is popular is because it's become this accepted metric, right? Before it was like Siskel and Ebert, 2 thumbs up, whatever, right? Um, what do we do? Like, what's the alternative to Rotten Tomatoes? What do you think?
That's tough, man. I think if you have an interest in seeing a movie, you should watch it.
Yeah,
Um, and that's tough though.
yeah.
That is kind of a tricky spot, right? Like how what other metric can be used to replace that? I don't know. I mean, I also don't even know if like box office numbers is an indication if a movie is good or not, right?
hmm Yeah,
Um, I
that's a
mean,
tough
there's
one.
certainly movies out there that have made a ton of money, but you've walked away from it thinking, man, that movie wasn't that good.
Yeah, yeah. So when I ask myself that question, I kind of think about the like pre Rotten Tomatoes days where I would actually read movie reviews, right? Um, so like my parents subscribed to the San Francisco Chronicle way back when, and it'd be kind of fun. There'd be uh, like the entertainment section, the date book, right? They would have movie reviews. Now, it's limiting because it's just like one guy, right? I think Mick LaSalle was the reviewer, and it'd just be this one person. So, like, the idea of Rotten Tomatoes was appealing, right? It's like, why just listen to one guy when you get this cumulative total? Little did I know it was total bullshit, but it seemed better than just one person, right? But I think there's a lot of benefit by reading these reviews, right? So a lot of the reviews by Mick LaSalle I disagreed with, but I read the review, and even if he disliked a movie, I could see why he didn't like it, and I could be like, I think I'd be okay with what he had a problem with. And as I read more of his reviews, it'd be like, okay, he just doesn't like this certain stuff in a movie that I'm actually okay with. So I'm kind of disregard this part and just be like a little bit more, I don't know, like kind of a thinking deeper on the whole thing rather than just having it be this metric, right? This one percentage thing. Like you mentioned Yelp, it's the same thing. It's like the Yelpizing of movie reviews, right? Um, so if there are like movie reviewers that who resonate with you, I think that's a good way to go. Like just follow their stuff. Like um, with the internet, there's so many movie reviews out there that it's very accessible, right?
Oh man.
So that's one way to go.
I think the internet can be tricky too because if you want a movie to fail, you'll find people that hate it, and if you want it to be
Yeah,
successful,
that's
you'll
true.
find people that love it. For me,
Yeah.
that's the thing. Like for me, I've never really been a big like movie review guy. I've never actually opened the Chronicle and looked at movie reviews. I
hmm
may have maybe stumbled upon a Siskel and Ebert like episode here and there, but for the most part, I think what attracts me to a movie is the trailer. And to this day,
hmm
like my wife and I, like we consider ourselves late to the movie if the trailers have already started playing because we actually just love watching trailers. And if a trailer's good enough, that's enough. That's enough to pull me into a movie.
Cool. That's, I mean, trailers don't tell the whole story, but you know, there's a lot of time, effort, and care that go into these movie trailers. So why not go off of what the experience you get watching those, right?
Yeah, yeah, and
Uh,
movie trailers too.
yeah,
They're a sizable part of the marketing budget.
yeah, yeah,
And in some cases, there have been movies where the marketing budget is even more expensive than the actual movie itself to be made, which is kind of crazy. And the
yeah. That's
trailer is part of that formula.
Yeah, that's pretty nuts. But I agree. Yeah, shit, I go off trailers all the time, all the time. The one thing I would also add is um, just word of mouth. Like talk to your
Yeah,
people. Like uh, we definitely have like-minded folks in our circles, so like get their takes, right?
yeah, man. Talk to
Yeah,
another human being. I think the hard
yeah.
part though is that part of the conversation, someone's going to be like, "Oh, dude, did you see the Rotten Tomato score?" So you're gonna have to ignore that part of the
Yeah,
conversation.
yeah. It's also tough too if you're wanting to watch a movie on opening night, which I know you and I do that a lot. Um, can't really do that if you're watching a movie like right as its opening, unless you have some insider person. Like you're not gonna know. You're not gonna have people who have seen it ahead of time, right? So it can be tricky. It can be tricky. But if there's any takeaway from our conversation today, is just do not go off this tomato meter.
Yeah, see the movie for yourself. I've always been an advocate for that. Make your own opinion. Don't
Yeah,
look at someone else's review. Make your own review.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And yeah, I know, you know, people's time and money are valuable. Um, so yeah, like you're not gonna want to go to a movie that potentially could be really shitty. I get that. But if if you can spare a few bucks, it can be kind of fun just kind of rolling the dice, right? Going
Yeah.
in without expectations, like, "Oh, I'm just gonna go and check this out and see what happens," right?
At the very least, you're gonna get some delicious theater popcorn and some candy,
There
right?
you go. Or you can you know, hate watch. You could it's kind of, sometimes it's fun to talk about how much you hated a movie, right?
Oh,
So,
like it's so bad it's good, right? Like those kind of
yeah.
movies.
Well,
Yeah.
there's that, but also just like the license to talk shit. Like, well, guess what? I've seen this movie, and you know what? It is garbage, and I'm gonna tell you why, right?
Yeah.
So there's nothing wrong with that. All right. Cool. So I think we can wrap things up. Any last tidbits you want to cover before we close it up?
Let's see. Any last tidbits? I did have a point about Star Wars I did want to actually talk about, but it totally escaped my mind when we jumped right into the Rotten Tomatoes thing. It might be too little too late. Maybe we can save it for the next time.
That sounds good. One final note, hooray for the end of the writer's strike that just was announced. So the WGA has reached a tentative agreement with studios, and the word is that the actor strike should follow suit
Yeah.
shortly.
Oh,
So hooray.
something to that point actually
Yep.
is I don't know if you're seeing news about this, but regarding like VFX artists, like there's been a big uproar in that community, and
Mm,
they're apparently being treated like trash. And
yeah.
yeah, I read a couple articles where they talk about how VFX houses are basically being pitted against each other to do the fastest work, you know, paid the least amount of money. And so I think if that's not already happening, I'm sure that's on the horizon that they're going to unionize so that yeah, they can get, their fair share of stuff, man. And part of the articles I've been reading is the Flash movie was actually a result of that, like just the crappy
Mm,
CGI.
hmm.
There's some movies out now too that are getting the same treatment as well. I can't think of them off the top of my head, but yeah, I think that's on the horizon. If you want good graphics in a movie that make you believe what you're seeing and be immersed in it, yeah, you guys gotta pay them.
Yeah, 100% agree. And Yeah, that's for all these groups, writers, actors, VFX folks,
Mhm.
like,
Oh,
you know, pay these
that's
people.
yeah, that's also extending into like the video game industry too. I'm sure you've heard
Mm,
horror stories of like
yeah,
what the video game industry is like. So yeah, it's pretty crappy.
yeah. And the timing of all of this is pretty good, I think, because there is so much content, there is so much to do. Like, hey, you people, do what you got to do. Go on strike, fight the power. We're here for you. Like, if you got to take a few months off to do this, like, oh shoot, maybe I'll watch Rebels like Ranier's doing. I'll go back. I'm good. I'll rewatch some stuff. I'll hold off. There's just so much content. So now's the time. Why not?
Yeah, there's just so much stuff out there. Oh, I did want to talk about Star Wars fatigue. Is it too late to talk
Okay,
about
no,
that?
no, no. Go ahead. Go
Because
ahead.
I know you and I have exchanged comments about that back and forth, and
Yeah.
I don't know the Star Wars fatigue thing. Like, I feel like it is a real thing, but I think it's also a matter of like who's the audience now, right? Because you remember how we were talking about like, man, the Star Wars movies used to come out like it was a celebration because we don't know when the next like Star Wars movie is going
Yeah.
to come out.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I think it's just a different day and age. I don't think it's Star Wars fatigue. I think it's people want people can consume Star Wars content like as fast as they want it, and I'm sure they want more of it. And I think they're just making it available to the audience that just wants to consume.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so I think it's just a different mindset. Like, when did you grow up? You know, how close to your heart is Star Wars,
Yeah.
and how much time can you actually like commit to diving into all of the content? I don't know.
Yeah.
I think it's a generational thing.
Yeah. Oh, I totally understand what you're getting at. Like, just the way we consume media is so different now that you really can't recreate like what we went through when we were young, right? Like watching Return of the Jedi in the theaters for the first time. I mean, it was just magical, right? It's just that sort of experience is just it's kind of a bygone era, right? Um,
I mean,
yeah,
making movies
so
back then is different than the way they can make movies now or television shows, right? They can produce so much more stuff faster these days at the expense of, you know, certain groups that are going to strike because they're not being treated right, right?
yeah,
But like
yeah,
it's
yeah,
crazy how fast can be just it can just be pumped out.
yeah. And we talk about Star Wars fatigue, but it's just like everything fatigue, right?
I think it's everything
Because
fatigue.
right
Could be.
before, yeah, okay, we you would only get a Star Wars movie every few years, but you could argue you wouldn't get much of anything except for like every few years, right? But now you're just
Yeah.
getting all kinds of shit, like all kinds of awesome stuff getting thrown at you all the time, like video game releases, streamers, and new TV shows. So it's just a
Yeah.
different world.
And I think the reason behind that is because if they don't pump that stuff out, that void is going to be filled by something else, you
Hmm.
know? So I
Yeah.
think it's this, yeah, it's this cat and mouse thing where it's just like, yeah, you want to give them time to breathe, but at the same time, you don't want to lose them. So they have to find some
Hmm.
balance, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know, maybe the message is we should just all be appreciative of what we have, like all this fatigue it could be all taken away. How about that? Like, okay, if you're so tired of
Yeah,
it, how
right.
about you just shut off your internet, no Disney Plus for you, you don't get to go to the movie theaters anymore.
Yeah.
Done.
Delete your IG, delete your TikTok.
Yeah. Then you'll see how it feels, right? All right. With that, we can wrap up the episode. This is farewell from Henry and Ranier.